Amy, welcome to Living Off Rentals.
Thank you. It's awesome to be here with you guys.
Yeah, it's great. Really great to have you here. I think I was just thinking about this, and I think one of the coolest parts about having a podcast like this, and an industry that I really love, and one that we've both been in for a long time, is that I feel like I just get to kind of bring on friends and have conversations about topics that we've come to realize over the years, and we've got to see each other like kind of grow up in the industry. And so I think of the last, we're right at 100 episodes now, and the majority of them have just been like friends of mine that are doing really cool stuff in real estate. So I'm excited to talk to you here and have this conversation. I know people are going to learn a lot from you. So yeah. And just as a little bit of background for the listeners, so Amy and I, we've been friends for many years. We met through a real estate education program that we both were a part of called Fortune Builders. And it seems like a lifetime ago that I signed up for that. I was thinking back, it was 2011. So it was a full decade ago when I signed up. When did you sign up for it?
So I came in like mid 2012, but I didn't really do anything with it until 2014. I think that's when I met you, 2014-ish.
Yeah. So it's been quite a few years now. Time flies. And we both lived in Chicago area. We did a lot of flips in the Chicago area. Amy was also on HGTV, where she would find rehabs to fix up in the Chicago area. And then since then, we both moved away from Chicago and taken different paths in the real estate space. So, I want to get into now what you're doing, with private money. But first, I'd love to hear, a little bit about like what drove you initially to get into real estate. And then we can kind of get into the evolution from there.
Yeah, no, of course. It's so funny because I just got done talking about this over the weekend. My background's very traditional, just like most people out there. I was working for someone else. I was working for Dell Computers out in Austin, Texas. And I just was over it. I was over corporate America. I didn't want to try to climb the corporate ladder anymore. And I thought my dream job was going to be with Nike in Oregon. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go try to get my dream job with Nike. But in the meantime, I'm going to get into real estate. And just for fun, as a side hustle, I'm going to flip like one or two homes just to make some extra cash and go waste it on like non-value added things. But what was so crazy is that very first year that I had that goal of 1 to 2 properties while I was working a full-time job for Dell, I, on accident, ended up buying, renovating, and selling 10 properties that very first year while still working for Dell because of my ability to raise capital. That was never my plan. So at the end of the year, when I saw a few things happen, plus I genuinely fell in love with the transformation process of the properties, I was like, what am I doing trying to go work for Nike? Like, I love real estate. I mean, I'm good at it. And so then that's when it kind of switched over for me. And then in 2015, I became a full-time real estate investor.
Got it. I see. And so when you became a full-time real estate investor, and what was the plan when you switched over? Because I think that's a point that a lot of people want to get to. They're in 9-to-5 jobs that they don't like. Was it just to flip properties, or how did you approach it?
Yeah, so unlike some listeners out there, I was never like looked at or thought of myself as a business owner, an entrepreneur, or a leader. I was like the problem solver. Bring me a problem, I will figure out what the best solution is. So when I realized real estate was my answer, my passion is still flipping. I just wanted to like flip houses and just do that. I still wasn't thinking about doing anything else, but everything just turned into had a snowball effect. And that's when everything with HGTV happened. I got approached by several other people to start coaching for them. And then over the next few years, so many investors were asking me for help, and they wanted help raising capital. And I didn't understand why they wanted that help because it just came so easy for me. I've got plenty of other weaknesses. And so that's when I was like, you know what? I'm going to shift gears, and I'm still going to flip and wholesale and invest in commercial deals. But my main focus has been over the last 2 years just helping other investors raise capital and really opening up their eyes to all the different ways that they can get creative and think outside the box when it comes to building rapport and trust with private money lenders.
I see. Okay. And I do want to get into the raising capital process, but you also moved out of Chicago and moved away. So how did that transition take place? Like, how did you transition into a new market? And what, I guess, inspired you to make the move?
Yeah, as a brand new investor, I really relied heavily on my power team. And because I still don't know it all, right? I think a lot of us can relate to this. Like, anytime there's success, it's because of our team. Anytime there are failures, it's our fault, right? It's my fault as a business owner. But so fortunately, I found this amazing general contractor, and we worked together for about 8 years. And so after being in the Chicago market for 18 months, I was comfortable, moving away because I trusted my general contractor. We built up this amazing team. And it was crazy. And you may be able to relate to this, Kirby, but I mean, we were gone living in California, like traveling all over Europe. And there were properties that I bought, renovated, and sold, and I'd never stepped foot inside of them, which if you would have said that to me when I started out, I would have been like, you are so crazy. Like, how are you ever even able to do that? But for those of you who are listening and maybe you're just getting started in real estate, focus on, building your power team, align yourself with the best, and people that you trust. And it can take some time. But once you do, it's going to make your job, your life so much easier. Yeah.
So what was your role in that relationship? Because I think a lot of people would love to be in that same situation. Did you would find the deals and line up the money, and then the contractor kind of took over all the hands-on aspect from there, or how did it work?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's exactly it. I always say it's our job to focus on two things, the next deal and then raising the money. And so that's what I would do. So basically, I was focusing on one zip code. And this is something I'll invite each and every one of you to do, is don't start focusing on your entire county, which is a huge lesson learned for me. I was focusing on all of Cook County, and I was driving myself crazy because every neighborhood is so different, right? And that's thousands of different neighborhoods. So I picked one neighborhood within one zip code, and I really got to know the buying and selling patterns, the data. I stuck with one realtor, one general contractor, one architect, and one designer. And so after, and by that point, I was 18 months in, right? So I knew how to analyze a deal remotely, like from the comfort of my own home based upon pictures, and I knew my contractor pricing and all that stuff. So we would put in the offers, and as soon as they were accepted, then my contractor would go through during that due diligence period, make sure the numbers worked. And then that was it. We would hustle and get to the closing table and get started, but everyone knew their role. So it was a pretty seamless transition, actually.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think, and I kissed a lot of frogs to find a great contractor as well. Yeah. I mean, went through a lot of pain, but I've had a contractor who's probably done my last 30 rehabs for me. And most of those are rental properties. So I think the system is slightly easier for rental than for flips, especially higher end flips. But it's night and day difference between having one that's a challenge to work with and having one that just knows your system. You can trust them. And I mean, it clears up so many issues before they even start. So that's awesome.
I know, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess, how did you eventually recognize that you were really good at the raising money aspect? And I guess what is it that do you point to that kind of made it more natural for you? Because I hear people say that they would love to be in real estate investing, or they'd love to do more deals, but they can't get money for them.
Oh my God, you hit the nail on the head. That is the number one showstopper for us as real estate investors. They talk about it, but they don't get into it because it's the money problem, right? We don't have millions of dollars in our pockets. And if we do, it's just a very small percentage of people. So again, we all have strengths and weaknesses. A natural strength of mine has always been just talking to people and I guess networking, right? But it really wasn't. I mean, I didn't launch my own coaching program until 2019. So for about 5 or 6 years, it was because so many investors kept coming to me asking me for help. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, that is the only reason why finally 5 or 6 years later, I was like, fine, this is so easy for me. I'll just create this program. And so that's why I did it, because I saw that there was a demand for it. And because it's so easy for me, and it's one of the most challenging things for us as investors out there, I want to try to fill that void. And then number 2 is my daughter is 2 years old now. And my primary focus is I want to be a soccer mom, and I can own it and I can say it. And so not having to get on an airplane every week and travel somewhere, for events, and being able to coach from the comfort of my own home is amazing. It still keeps me connected, and I can still be a mom. And my husband, Sean, who and I were still active investors. And so that's kind of how it just came to fruition, was just people asking for help.
Yeah, got it. Yeah. And I think I talk to obviously a lot of people on this show who are in real estate investing. And I think that's a common theme, is that eventually you start off by, doing deals that you kind of like do whatever you need to do to make a profit in the beginning. Cause it's more about like, you've got to survive. And then eventually it turns into more lifestyle by design. And I'm in the same boat. Like, there's deals that I know I could make a profit on that I turn down now, because I'm all about like having deals that I can manage very easily. And I teach a program too, to teach people how to do their first vacation rental. And it's all like set up around my lifestyle, to where I don't have to be in a hotel conference room on the other side of the world to teach this. It's like all online. It's very as simplistic as I can make it in terms of the process. So for your program then, where you teach people how to line up private money, can you kind of walk through some of the main components of what you're teaching? Because I think there's probably some like pretty big money blocks for people that when it comes to raising money and asking somebody else for hundreds of thousands of dollars when they've never even considered that amount of money before in their life. So how do you get people beyond that?
Yeah, right. And great question. So I always start with, because I know they're also like shades of gray when it comes to knowing like what is a private money lender. So for those listeners out there who may be, newer to the industry, like, I'm not talking about hard money. I'm not talking about somebody brokering deals. I'm talking about us getting out there and raising money from our neighbors, Uber drivers, cashiers at the grocery store, church, sporting events, anyone and everyone you encounter, people at the airport, people on the airplane, people who don't even know that they can be private money lenders. Because, and I know Kirby, actually, a lot of listeners out there can probably relate to this. So many educators will tell us, oh, it's so easy to raise money. Just go, ask your friends and family members. I'm the opposite. I'm going to tell you not to depend on your friends and family members, and you don't need them. Mostly because I'm stubborn and I did not have supportive friends and family members when I got into the industry. So I wanted to prove them wrong. And so that's the kind of private money I'm talking about. And so what I have is it's a self-study program. It's all online. I call it the 3 C's. And, I give my students access to their online curriculum, which is pretty cool because it's 7 different modules. And it's all laid out in order of priority. So they just go through the training in order. They do the action items, the homework assignments. And as early as module 1, they are starting to build their lists and plant seeds with private money lenders, and they don't even know what's happening. So it's a done for you model, right? I give them all my scripts, my credibility pieces, but then it's cool because they have the ability to have live calls with me every week. So the 2nd C is live coaching, which we do every Friday. And then the 3rd C, like many educators out there, is we have a private Facebook group, and I don't outsource any of this stuff. So it's direct access to me. I monitor and manage everything. So anytime, students have questions, they just pop them in our Facebook group and I get back to them within 24 hours. But that's like the gist of it. But it's everything from A to Z. Getting creative, thinking outside the box, It's basically a rapport and trust building blueprint that works anywhere and everywhere. The only way to fail is to not take action. So it's pretty easy.
And what are some of the results that people are getting from this? I mean, what have you seen? Is there anything that stands out?
There are a couple, which I would say are anomalies, which I'll get into in a second. On average, my students will see results in as little as 3 weeks. And on average, they're raising a minimum of 6 figures. Now, a couple anomalies on the high end, on the good and the bad are, 2 of my students come to mind. One came in and in a matter of days raised like literally unlimited capital. She found an investor who said, I'll fund every deal. If it's just within this one pocket. Now, she was a realtor, so she came into this with an advantage. She already had a network in place. Another student, a year in, when she started working with me, she had never raised money before. And in 12 months, she raised $2 million. So that was pretty cool. That is not normal, you guys, okay? And then there are other people who have come in and they've done nothing. But it's funny because those who have done nothing, they haven't even logged into their training. I don't even know if they know that I can see this, but they haven't done any of the work and they're telling me it's not working. Well, go do the training and then let's figure out why it's not working.
Yeah. Yeah. And are these, because I kind of, I feel like I'm in the same camp as you, that the money was never the issue for me. It was always finding deals. And I think maybe it's just because I'm like reticent to put somebody else's money to work unless I know I have like a killer deal. And I think other people, it's like, if they've got money, they're putting it into something. And if it works out, great. If it doesn't, then that's fine. But what types of deal, like if I had unlimited money overnight, I try to think about like what I would do with that, like what types of deals I'm able to put that much money into. So are these all flips, or is it people who are doing rentals, or what types of deals?
That is a great question, and a huge gap in what I just rattled off. So thank you for asking that question. So first, I agree with you. You guys, we got to have a deal, right? You're not going to get out there and raise capital successfully if we don't know how to analyze deals. So that actually is a part of my training, is how to analyze deals. Specifically, I train on wholesale, fix and flips, and rentals. But to answer your question, when we have access to private money, I have a whole list of things that you can do. Like we can flip, we can wholesale, we can go invest in commercial syndications, we can do commercial deals, we can invest in multifamily properties, we can go start a hard money lending fund if we want. We can generate referral fees, because eventually, and I remember when one of my mentors said this to me, he was like, Amy, raising money is so easy. It's just like Monopoly, it's paper money, it's going to turn into a game, and eventually you're going to have more money coming in than you need. And I remember getting so nervous thinking, oh my God, you're so crazy. That's never going to happen. But it is, you guys. Like once you have a system and you know what you're doing, when you have more money coming in than you need, then you want to get creative and think outside the box and maybe go buy more rental properties, right? Why buy one rental property a year when you can buy 1 a month, 3 a month, 5 a month? Airbnbs are huge. Like my husband and I are starting into Airbnbs. So it's like literally the sky's the limit. It's endless opportunity to raise capital.
No, I agree. There's so many different options. Are there strategies that kind of stand out that some of your more successful students are following? Is it like turning that capital into, like you said, a hard money lending business, or is it they're mostly investing in flips or using it for what are the top people or the most successful people doing that some of the others might not be?
Yeah, it's going to be the 3 that I help analyze. It's going to be the fix and flippers, the wholesalers, and then those looking to buy and acquire more and more rental properties in order to expedite their path to retirement. Now, I do have some students, like one of my students started his own hard money lending fund. That's not common, but it's something that we can do with access to private money. But I'm not going to tell you how to go start a fund and how to get regulated by the SEC. That's something you can do.
Yeah. And that's something I've done too. And I think people don't realize that how much of a great secondary source of income that can be. And I'm not raising a huge fund, but I'll lend to friends and family that are doing flips just because, we have a big real estate network now. And if you can borrow money at, say, even 8%, which is a great return to a lender, and then you lend it out at 12% and 2 points, which is typical hard money, terms, that's a great spread that you can make on that money. And it's, you haven't really done anything other than underwrite the deal and lend it in a, conservative way where you're in a really relatively safe position. And so if you have access to extra capital, it's just, you can be kind of the middleman lining up these deals, especially once you start building that network of other real estate investors. So that's a great point.
No, that's true. And I should add that to my list because I do that too. So thank you. That leads me into, just revisiting this one, I guess, mindset shift that so many investors, come into my program thinking, and you said this earlier where they'll say like, oh, I feel bad asking for money, or I don't have any rich friends and family members, or I don't want anyone, doing me a favor. And so one of the first things we talk about is like, you guys, get over it. You're not asking for anything, right? It's like we're presenting them with opportunities. And so the way we make that mindset shift is through our knowledge and education, right? So the number one reason why people out there don't act as private money lenders is because they're simply not educated on how the process works, right? So it's our job as the investor to educate them. And once we do that and we open up their eyes to all the different ways that they can invest with us, and they see your confidence and they see that you know what you're doing, they have systems in place. Once you convert them to becoming a lender on one deal, then they'll reinvest and reinvest and reinvest. And then they'll also increase their investment amount. So it'll be, in a good way, this vicious cycle. And then you just keep taking care of them, and it's just long-term relationships.
Yeah, that's exactly what I've seen too. I mean, my investors who I started with in 2011 are still investing with me in some cases, and it's just people who had a little bit of money then, and we've made more money for them. They've saved more from their job or whatever, their self-directed funds, and it's just accumulated to where you've got eventually have more capital than you need or can put to work at a time. And that's how I got into sort of lending as well. But it's so true. You're not, I mean, as soon as you give people that type of return, they're like, this is great, and it's relatively, safer than a lot of things they could put it into. So I think that's great. A topic that comes up in the community a lot is, and something that I think another thing, I guess, that holds people back is their desire to predict where the market is going. And I'd love to hear your take on where you think things are heading with real estate, because obviously it feels like, I mean, real estate has gone up for the last, I think, 10 years or 11 years straight every year. And so, in markets, things can't go up forever, but, we've said that now for the last many years, right. And it just keeps going up. So I know I saw yesterday in an article that Zillow just announced they're laying off 25% of their staff, and they're not buying any more properties anymore, which was a huge part of their business. And they said it was because they can't predict pricing anymore, which they have Zestimates, which is kind of ironic that they're telling you what the value is, but they can't predict pricing. So, that when someone that big or an organization that big stops, I think it causes people to say, oh, what's going on here? And so that's always a concern of people. So what's your take on where do you think things are heading with real estate in general?
That's so funny because the event I was just at in LA, this question came up, and it comes up all the time, as I'm sure you know. And for at least the last 2 years, people have been saying, oh my God, the economy is about to crash. Like, I'm not going to get into real estate. This is crazy. I'm going to sit on my cash. Why? It's always a good time to buy, right? As long as we have a strict buying criteria, even during an economic recession and downturn, and if the market crashes, we can still buy and turn a profit in real estate as long as we know how to analyze deals, and as long as we shift our investment strategy. So right now, I'm probably not going to go out and buy 10 high-end properties to renovate, but I'll go out and buy a handful of low to middle income properties that if I can't sell them and flip them, who cares? I'll turn them into rentals. There's always demand out there in the housing market. So it's just a matter of shifting our strategy, not just waiting to get into the business or exiting the business.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I don't have an opinion on when the market is going to crash. I'm just constantly fine tuning and changing my strategy. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's so smart. And that's what I always tell people too. I'm like, why do you care if it's going to crash? And the only reason I think people would care is, like you said, is if they're flipping high-end properties. I mean, I remember when we were doing that, on the north side of Chicago, we were involved in many luxury flips at the same time. And this was back, in 2014, 15, when I thought the market was at its peak. Here we are in 2011, and it's like double what it was then. But I would lay awake at night going, man, if the market crashed tomorrow, if it dropped 20% tomorrow, how many millions of dollars do we have in these properties? And these are not properties that I could rent. And it's a scary proposition. But if you're in properties that are cash flowing like crazy, I don't even look at what the value of my properties are. Like, it's irrelevant because they're paying for my lifestyle, and that's going to remain the same, whether the market goes up or down. So, so I think it's smart to evaluate your strategy when you start to look at what the market's going to do. And if you're getting nervous, there might be a reason why, and you might want to change up your strategy.
Yeah, if you're brand new, just start small. One of the first things I did was I focused on 1-bed, 1-bath condos in downtown Chicago, where back then it was just a $130,000 investment, right? So start with a smaller price point as you start to build your team and get comfortable with your contractor and like really figure out your system. And then you can grow and scale from there. Yeah.
Cool. I'm always curious to hear from guests who've been doing this a long time. Like, what's one of the best deals that they've done? Is there one that you can kind of point to that is a example of one that really was a great deal for you?
Well, I was smiling earlier when you mentioned high-end luxury flips in Chicago's North Side, because that's what I started focusing on heavily in 2015. And those were some good days because I turned multiple 6-figure profits like that year. And it was great, but I lost multiple 6 figures on other projects, right? It's like we make money, we lose money. And, but during those tough times, it's like how we respond to those tough times is what defines us. But yeah, I'm always saying, man, I wish it was 2015. I wish it was 2015. But, I just saw the opportunity because there were so many investors in that market in Chicago who didn't have access to millions of dollars in private money. So that was preventing them from putting in offers in these high-end properties. Well, that wasn't the issue for me. So most of the offers I'd put in would get accepted. And then a lot of them turned a profit and some of them didn't. But that's what comes to mind when you talk about some amazing wins is 2015 and those high-end properties in Chicago's North Side.
Yeah. And those are like, and there's probably a reason for that. They're like grand slams where, you take a big risk, but it also can pay off heavily as well. But I think over time, probably not the best long-term strategy because the market can go up and down. So
I'm definitely over it. I'm good now with the easy flips.
What advice would you have for somebody who, I think a lot of this audience is newer to real estate investing. And so based on all your experience over the years, what's your best piece of advice for someone who's thinking about getting started or just getting started?
Yeah, no, great question. I would say definitely align yourself with other people who have done this before. People who have a proven track record of success, people who are going to tell you the good, the bad, the in between. They're not just going to tell you what you want to hear, and, learn from other people's mistakes. And if you can find, a shortcut or the fast track to success through other people's proven systems, and take advantage of it. But I definitely think aligning yourself, we all hear this, align yourself with others on the same mission as you. And as I roll my eyes saying that, it's true. And that's one of the, first things I did as a brand new investor, because I didn't know what I was doing. I invested heavily in coaching and mentorship because I didn't want to make a bunch of mistakes or read 500 books or listen to 50 different podcasts. Like, I wanted to start having results now. So that is my response.
Yeah. Yeah. And if somebody's listening to this and they want to, what you're saying about private capital and what you teach really resonates with them. And, they're not in the camp where it kind of comes easy to them. Maybe they have deals, but they need to get some money lined up. What's the best way for them to find out more about the program?
Yeah. I'm actually doing a free live webinar next Wednesday. And you guys can register at raisingpm.com/register, or you can connect with me on Instagram. Just Amy Mahjoory is my handle. Send me a message. But that'd be the best way to get a hold of me, is either just attend my live workshop, because I always save time for Q&A at the end, or just connect with me on Instagram and let me know if you have any follow-up questions.
Cool. And so if people are watching this live, I think that'll work. But if not, and they're listening to the podcast recording, it'll probably come out, 4 or 5 weeks after we record this. So is that link still going to be live, or is there a different link at that point?
I'll keep doing on. Yeah, that's fine. raisingpm.com/register or raisingpm.com/webinar to watch one of the replays.
Cool. Awesome. Well, this has been great information, and I know you're really good at what you do. So I think if people check that out, they will really benefit from it. So I appreciate you coming on. Thank you. It's been great chatting with you, and we'll talk soon. Sounds good. Take care.